Okay, so question 1C, 1D and question 2 of the Nazi Germany paper are very similar, because if you have a look, they are all requiring you to explain. And so I'm just going to demonstrate how we would answer one of these questions rather than go through each of them, because the way you answer them is really similar. If we just look at the question that we answered before, which was 1B, the key features question, it was asking us to describe. And so we made a point and we used some factual information to develop that. This is going to be similar. It's just that while we are making a point and then providing some evidence, we're then going to be explaining, and to get 8 marks we're also going to be trying to show how some of the things we're talking about are linked. Okay, so to demonstrate how we would answer this question, I'm actually going to answer the Treaty of Versailles question, which is explain why the people of Germany dislike the Treaty of Versailles. So just like we did with the key features question, we're first of all going to think about the 2 points that we'd like to make, because to get 8 marks we need to make or explain 2 things and try to show how they're linked. So I might say, firstly, German people dislike the Treaty of Versailles because they felt that their country was being drastically weakened. So that's the first point. I'm going to come back to this in a second and talk about how we would go on to explain that. In addition to this, Germans also dislike the treaty because it crippled the country financially. Okay, so we're now going to go and we're going to add our evidence. I'm just going to show you this because this is really important for this explain question. You need to make 2 points, you need to provide some evidence, you then need to explain what was happening, and then if possible try and show a link to get those 8 marks. So our first point is, firstly, German people disliked the Treaty of Versailles because they felt that their country was being drastically weakened. This was because almost 50% of its iron and 50% of its coal reserves were taken, and in addition to this, Germany lost about 13% of its European territory. If we have a look down here, I'm just going to provide some evidence for this point. So we said, in addition to this, Germans also disliked the treaty because it crippled the country financially. And we'll just provide some evidence here about the reparations. Reparations were eventually fixed in 1921 at 136,000 marks. And you might want to add in there that that was the equivalent of that figure. Okay, so we've ticked our first 2 boxes here. We've made 2 points and we've provided evidence. What we need to do now is go and explain. This is the crucial part of this question. Okay, so I'm just going to select another colour so that we can see the difference between our points. So quick recap. We've got, firstly, German people disliked the Treaty of Versailles because they felt that their country was being drastically weakened. This was because almost 50% of its iron and 15% of its coal reserves were taken. In addition to this, Germans lost, that should be Germans, lost about 13% of their European territory, that should say. As a result of these actions, the people of Germany felt that they would not be able to provide for their own country, let alone compete with other European countries. It had also been further punished by losing its territories and having to give them to other European countries. This would have been an embarrassment to Germany and a threat, as other countries were now in a more powerful position. Okay, so we've got our second point which we're trying to explain. So we've got, in addition to this, Germans also disliked the treaty because it crippled the country financially. Reparations were eventually fixed in 1921 at 136,000 marks. This figure that was agreed on was far too high, and Germany were incapable of paying it. This was made worse by the fact that France, who were one of the most insistent countries, needed money to pay war debts to the USA and put a considerable amount of pressure on Germany to pay. Now, so far we've got 2 points with evidence and explanation. If we have a quick look back here, we know that we now have to link, especially if we want 8 out of 8. So it's about trying to think of how this action, so the taking of its iron and its coal reserves, can be linked to Germany feeling financially crippled. Now, it might be useful for you to pause the video here and for you to try and think about how you would link these two events. There are numerous ways that you could do it. I'm just going to demonstrate one of those down at the bottom, and I will use a different colour. Okay, so I'm going to say, however, due to the fact that Germany had spent all of its gold reserves in the war, and now due to the fact that it had lost about 50% of its iron and 15% of its coal reserves, Germany had no way of paying. and was in the middle of a financial disaster. So you can see here that I've linked the fact that they didn't have the resources to work their way out of the debt into this paragraph down here. Now, if you did something like that, hopefully it would get 8 out of 8 in the exam. And again, you don't want to be spending longer than 10 minutes on this question. And do always remember that for the explain questions, it's just basically 2 peel paragraphs.